Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I'll talk very briefly about the author, go into a spoiler-free overview of the plot, talk about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, who I'd recommend the book to, and I think we'll end it there. Actually, the next book I'm probably going to read is I I'll talk about what I'm going to read for next at the end of the video. Joe Abercrombie is known for being a grimdark fantasy writer. I reviewed the heroes for the channel. I'll leave a link below there if you want to check him out. He's an English fantasy novelist. He's written a few other things, but he's mostly known for writing in a shared world. I've read the heroes, the Blade itself, and Red Country, which are all part of his other series. This book, The Devils, is actually a completely different fantasy universe and is really cool. It's actually like this kind of amalgamation of a few different feelings. It's basically like the Middle Ages if the Christian church had a female Christ figure. In this world, there are fantasy creatures, and so you have these like weird cultural mash of Vikings and Transylvanians, and there are elves who are cannibals, and so it's just kind of this weird mashup where the Catholic Church has power, or the analog of the Catholic Church has power, but there's a schism in the religion, and there's kind of two different sides of that religion. There's magic in the world. It was just a really, really cool world that he built. Is one of the best things about the book. There's all little bits and bobs of the world was really, really interesting. There's some downsides with that too that I'll get into a little bit. In some ways, this book is, you can tell it's a pretty massive book. I think it's like over 500 pages. This is the first book of a series. There's supposed to be two more books that come after this. This came out last year, and so there may be, I don't know when the next book is going to be released, but it's very much the first book in a series. What is the book? The book is about a group of, it's almost like a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in some ways for the medieval ages. So if you imagine this world like I described, but you have vampires, necromancers, elves, werewolves, and these members, there's a knight who is basically immortal. He's not able to die, but he also is not able to heal, and so he's like in constant pain. This like menagerie of like misfits is part of what's called the Devils, and so these are characters who are bound to serve the Pope in a sense, in essence, in this world, and they are basically sent on mission after mission after mission. So it's kind of like a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but for like these creatures, which is kind of a cool concept. It's like they kind of keep getting sent on these like suicide missions essentially, and they are led by a monk named excuse me excuse me Brother Francis, or Brother Diaz. And Brother Diaz has a mission to basically reclaim the city of Troy, and there is a girl who has been, it's been determined that she is going to sit on the throne at the city of Troy. Excuse me. And in order for her to do that, she has to get from where she is to Troy. And there's this like, it's a very, very dangerous world, and people kind of keep getting in her way. And there's all kinds of mischief, and it's this kind of crazy action adventure plot that's a lot of fun. Excuse me. But I've rambled a lot. What I really liked about the book was the characters are really good and interesting. Joe Abercrombie writes these characters who are constantly in pain really well. Inspector Glocta, I think, is still probably my favorite of his characters. There's a character in this book who is the Knight of Thorns, or Jacob of Thorn, and that character is really interesting and kind of his perspective of the world. It's a book, you can kind of see Joe Abercrombie's skills as a writer. The action scenes are really great. The set pieces, there's a set piece on like a sinking ship that is like one of my favorite things that I've read in fantasy in a long time. I really, really enjoyed it. Even though you have this relatively large cast of characters, he does a good job of pairing them up in relationships, so you kind of know what they all think of each other. Each of them is written in a very specific voice and has very specific personalities, and those personalities kind of meld and mash in a really interesting way. I really, 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 really enjoyed the first two thirds of this book. The book lost a little bit of steam for me in the last third, and I thought that there was some. It felt like I was kind of grinding out the last third. So the last third was maybe not as impactful as I would have liked it to have been. I think too, in some ways, he has a lot of really interesting bits of this world, but there are parts of it that I wanted to know more about the world. There's one character in particular. It's not clear how her powers came to be, and there are some times where I wish there had been more like history of the world when it comes to certain things. I'm sure this is going to be fleshed out in future books, but there's parts of it where there's so many things going on, and there's like one central tension in the book, and I wish there was more of the history. It's not clear if that history is valid or invalid, but that part of it was relatively minor. There's some action set pieces where there's some characters who kind of just fade into the background. There's one character in particular who gets, I think, a little bit less to do in the book, and so when he comes on stage, he feels a little bit less, more of like a Deus Ex Machina character, and I wish that character had been fleshed out a little bit more. But I really, really, really enjoyed this book. It was a lot of fun. It reminded me a little bit of Kingdom of Heaven. If you basically took Kingdom of Heaven and mashed it up with Game of Thrones, except it's not as grimdark as Game of Thrones. I think the book does a really interesting thing with the tone where there is sex and sexuality in the book, but there's not really a fear of sexual assaults. There's violence in the book, but it doesn't feel gruesome. I think he does a very good job of having these kind of horrific creatures, and he kind of uses them as kind of the fighting force that the heroes are fighting against, and so it doesn't feel as maybe gory as it would if they were humanoid characters. And so just I really enjoyed it. I wish it maybe had landed a little bit longer. And I think that there may be some places where he could have cut, and I feel like he's kind of building it up for the sequels. But the book stands alone really well, and I thought it was a lot of fun. If you like fantasy but don't want something that's like super grimdark, but you want kind of something with an adventure feel that has kind of like a medieval feel to it that still has history and still has relationships and still has like fun characters, I really, really, really highly recommend this book, The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. Next time I'm going to be reading Too Big to Fail, the Aaron Ross Sorkin book, excuse me, about the 2008 financial crisis. So something completely different. Like I said, I'll have my video to the heroes in the link below. So please, if you've enjoyed this, feel free to check that out. Always, if you like this video, please leave a like. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you've read this book, like I said, this is one of my more recent reviews. So if you've read it, please let me know your thoughts below. Did you like it? Did you not like it? I saw there was some mixed reviews on it. I thought it did pretty well on Goodreads. I haven't gone through the reviews, but I did see some 1 or 2 stars that I was a little surprised. So I'll be interested to see what the downsides are from some people. But yeah, love to hear from everybody. Until next time, bye.